drifting south from the now infamous Icelandic volcano again disrupted air travel, forcing the closure of many airports in England, Scotland and Ireland. Most of the restrictions were eventually lifted on Monday, relieving fears of a repeat of travel chaos the ash caused in April. Later in the week, the Civil Aviation Authority announced changes to ash guidelines, allowing planes to travel through denser clouds of ash for limited periods. A planned strike by British Airways cabin crew was, for the second time, stopped by a High Court judge hours before it started. The judge ruled the Unite union hadn't sent its members the exact breakdown of the result of a ballot. Unite reacted with fury, saying that was a technicality and that it would appeal against the judgment. Britain's former Foreign Secretary, David Miliband, officially launched his campaign to become the next leader of the Labour Party. His younger brother, Ed Miliband, says he's also going for the position. Later in the week, the former Cabinet Minister Ed Balls confirmed that he's standing for the leadership as well. A man described by a judge as a serious threat to national security won his appeal to stay in the UK. Abid Nazir was arrested in April last year, along with several other men, on suspicion of being a ringleader planning a terror attack in Britain. The judge said he could not deport Nazir to Pakistan because he might be tortured. Here's our Home Affairs correspondent, Daniel Sanford.
Codenamed Operation Pathway, it ended with the biggest counter-terror raids last year.
We're dealing with a very big terrorist plot. We've been following it for some time.
A huge swoop by armed officers across Liverpool and Manchester.
They were just face to the ground and, they just had the guns to the head and stuff.
Then no one was charged, but today an immigration court said that a mass casualty bomb attack in northwest England had been disrupted. Abid Nazir, the ringleader, was described by the judge as an Al-Qaeda operative. However, the judge also said that he and an accomplice should not be deported to Pakistan, as they may be tortured. The new Home Secretary, Theresa May, immediately said, "They are a security risk to the UK. We are now taking all possible measures to ensure they do not engage in terrorist activity." The men will now have to be released from prison and put on control orders, a form of house arrest, to the frustration of the government's reviewer of terrorism legislation.
The United Kingdom and Pakistan are friendly countries. We share some interests, including the fight against terrorism. Surely we can find a way to ensure that people who are returned, for example, to Pakistan, will not be ill-treated when they get there, and satisfy the courts to that effect.
The court heard that the alleged plot involved two groups of Pakistani students who, on the surface, were enjoying their time studying in Liverpool and Manchester. But MI5 suspected they were planning a bomb attack, and in April last year they were watching as Abid Nazir headed downstairs at this Manchester internet cafe to log on. What happened next triggered the police to move in and make their arrests, because Abid Nazir wrote an email to his contact in Pakistan, an email the security services believed was written in code, with the word nikah or wedding substituted for attack. The sentence that caused most alarm mentioned a specific date. Nazir had written, "I met with Nadia family and we both parties have agreed to conduct the nikah after 15th and before 20th of this month." Fearing an imminent attack, police made their arrests, but the men who the judge says were involved in the plot still protest their innocence, including one already back in Pakistan.
I have no link with Al-Qaeda. I am not Islamic extremist. I am a normal Muslim. I go to mosque and praying.
Meanwhile, a man described by a judge as an Al-Qaeda operative who poses a serious threat to national security cannot be deported. Daniel Sanford, BBC News, Manchester.
Britain's new Parliament convened for the first time since the general election. The new Prime Minister, Conservative David Cameron, was seated alongside Nick Clegg, his coalition partner and leader of the Liberal Democrats. Two British children, a 5-year-old girl and an 11-month-old boy, were found dead in a hotel room in the coastal resort of Lloret de Mar, northeast of Barcelona. Their mother, Leanne Smith, was arrested on suspicion of murder, while their father appeared in court in Britain on charges of child sex abuse the following day. Nick Clegg has used his first major speech as Britain's Deputy Prime Minister to promise the most significant changes to the country's democracy since the Great Reform Act of 1832. Mr Clegg said he wanted to see power returned to the people. Our political editor, Nick Robinson, reports.
Today, a government that looks different promised it would be different by giving you more and them less power, freedom and control.
This government is going to transform our politics so that the state has far less control over you and you have far more control over the state. This government is going to break up concentrations of power and hand power back to people.
Nick Clegg promised the biggest shake-up in democracy since, well, this, the Great Reform Act of 1832. He says that he will reform not just the House of Lords, give us a referendum on the voting system, but also shake up party funding too. Ideas which, of course, they've been discussing ever since all these bills were lodged here in the Parliamentary Archives. The promises came in the first speech by the first Liberal to hold government office in 65 years. He insists his reforms are not just about the way Westminster works, but your freedoms too. Plans for ID cards will be scrapped, he said. So too the proposed contact point database of 11 million children, and the use of CCTV and the storage of innocent people's DNA will be restricted.
What Nick Clegg is doing is taking a number of measures that have been Lib Dem obsessions for many years, and he's now got license to put them together to suggest that we live in some kind of surveillance society. We do not. And on issues like the DNA database, I think he's dangerously restricting the police's ability to catch dangerous criminals.